Welcome in. It is Big Ten today. It is great to have you with us on this Monday. We're presented by Gatorade. Dave Revs and Andy Katz coming off what is always one of the most enjoyable weekends on the sports calendar. Kind of a mixed bag for the Big Ten, but I will say this. The two teams that advanced looked fabulous.
At the end of the day, all that you're judged on, I think, is can you get a team to the Sweet 16 and potentially the Final Four? And the Big Ten enters the Sweet 16 with two legitimate chances to get to Phoenix. The other teams, you could make the argument that, Northwestern won a game, 3-0 in 3 NCAA tournament appearances, and they go against a buzzsaw in UConn. Nebraska, we see that Texas A&M obviously was better than projected with the way they played against Houston, so I'm okay there. There was really only one team of the 6 that underperformed, and that was Wisconsin in losing to James Madison. The top 2 elite, Michigan State wins a game,
right?
Looked dominant against Mississippi State, run again a number 1 seed. So seed-wise, they weren't expected to win.
Right.
So I think overall the Big Ten got 2 to the Sweet 16, the best 2 advanced, and that's positive.
And again, that's kind of what this tournament has been. We have seen a lot of the
Yes.
higher seeds move on. Only one that would be considered even remotely in a Cinderella mode right now being NC State. Let's dive into our big story. The 2 Big Ten teams still standing as we head to the Sweet 16. Again, Illinois advancing, victories over Morehead State and Duquesne, winning by a combined 42 points. First time they've made it out of the first weekend since they played for the national title in 2005. And then Purdue overcoming its recent tourney struggles in overpowering fashion. They crushed Grambling and Utah State. The 39-point win over the Aggies yesterday was tied for the largest margin in an NCAA tourney win in school history. Let's start with the Boilers. You had a great seat. You had a front row seat for this as the sideline reporter for these games. Zach Edey, absolutely dominant. This was what Purdue needed. It just felt like a huge weight off of their shoulders.
Yeah, first of all, we've talked many times on this show. Purdue, embrace may not be the right word, but they didn't run away and hide from that loss to FDU a year ago. None of them did, including Zach Edey. They addressed it. They knew they had to get past that first game. They were a little sluggish in the first half against Grambling State, and Grambling State, obviously, I thought played well. They were the aggressor. And, they made it a game in the first half. But overall, Zach Edey was absolutely dominant inside, 30 and 21. He looked like the National Player of the Year. So they get by Grambling State. And then against Utah State, again, first half, Utah State, I thought, played well right off at the beginning. They attacked them. They had a mini lead. And then Trey Kaufman-Renn, right off the bat, he was the one that was scoring for Purdue, which was a really good sign. And then Zach Edey got going, ends up with 23 and 14. In the second half, they just flipped the switch. Lance Jones, Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, Cam Heide. They were getting contributions from everybody and absolutely blew out the best team, or I should say the regular season champ. Maybe San Diego State's the best team, but the regular season champ from the Mountain West Conference.
6-bid league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely obliterated them. The crowd was unbelievably good on Sunday. I will say on Friday, it was a little weird that they jam-packed the 2 sessions. So the first half of the game on Friday, Purdue fans were left outside as they were trying to get in. It was not a normal split session. Usually you have an hour or so. There was only 25 minutes. Get everyone out, get everyone in. So the first half was just a little weird because the crowd wasn't in there yet. Second half, great crowd. Purdue filled the arena. And then, of course, Sunday, unbelievable crowd. It was like Mackey South on Sunday in that second half. I had the double earpiece in, and I had a hard time hearing just because how loud it got. But that was a dominating performance. And then after the game, in interviewing Matt Painter and Zach Edey, they were about as businesslike as I've seen them ever. And Matt's getting a little testy, and he should. The questions about being boring and is Zach just tall, all this ridiculous stuff. And he's dismissing it, and he should at this point because he is a dominating player. He's the player of the year. If you don't like watching Zach Edey and this Purdue team, then maybe you don't like basketball or maybe you're just too young. I hate to sound like get off my lawn, but this is the way the game was played, 20 years ago or more. It just has changed with big men stepping out more. So they play basketball, the way it should be played and the way it was played. So there should be no complaints.
To your point on that, Zach Edey's numbers, he is the first player in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament to go for more than 50 points, 35 rebounds, and shoot 65% since a fella named Lou Alcindor did it. So we're talking old school with Kareem. Okay, so Gonzaga next. This is a game you saw earlier this year.
I've been around this season.
Played this game in Hawaii. Andy had the rough assignment of going out there to cover it. A game Purdue led 1 by 10, but Gonzaga was winning in the first half. And then ultimately it just felt like Purdue kind of wore them down inside. They got to the free throw line a lot. It was kind of a vintage Purdue performance in the second half. I think Gonzaga's gotten better since then. They have really played well. Like, we were looking at Gonzaga 2 months ago and saying, are they going to make the tournament? And now I think you look at them and say, this is a team that is going to give Purdue everything they can handle, and there's no reason to think can't win this game. What do you think of the matchup?
Well, they do actually match up well with them because Trey Kaufman-Renn and Anton Watson could cancel each other out. Graham Ike, transfer from Wyoming, was one of the best players in the Mountain West Conference a couple of years ago, was hurt his last year there, and there was a little bit of a slow starter this season, but now he's playing really well. So he's got great size, and he's strong, long, so he can match up with Zach Edey and will give a different look because Zach's not going to be able to, even though he's 7'4" and taller, to have that hook, the outstretched arm of Ike is going to be up there.
Yeah.
But I still think he's a better basketball player. But still, that will be a good matchup. The question will be Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer, Lance Jones, and now the way Cam Heidi's playing against Nolan Hickman, Ryan Nembhard, for the most part, from Gonzaga. I think Purdue has a few more weapons. I think they'll have the better crowd in Detroit than Gonzaga. But I do expect this to be a game. This is not going to be Utah State. I mean, Purdue's going to be in for a game. Gonzaga just beat Kansas. I know they were shorthanded, but they were the dominant team in that game, certainly in the second half against the Jayhawks. So this is not going to be easy. It shouldn't be easy in the Sweet 16. I do think Purdue will win, and they've already faced this team. But as you said, both Gonzaga is better, but so is Purdue.
Yes. No, I would agree with that assessment. I do think Purdue has a depth advantage on Gonzaga. Gonzaga's not all that deep this year. And again, like the emergence of Heidi, like to me that, even Colvin playing well here, it feels like they're gaining more confidence in some of the guys who have been bit players, but you don't bet against Mark Few in March. I mean, he's got a pretty good track record, 9 straight Sweet 16s. It's really a remarkable run that he's had, and that should be an incredible game. How about Illinois? I would say they exercised some demons as well, getting to this second weekend. The first half against Morehead State wasn't great. The next 3 halves, to me, were about as well as they can play. And when we saw the run they made through the Big Ten tournament, we saw the way they played at the end of this year. I mean, we're going to talk to Brad Underwood here. He's going to join me in the next segment. But, man, they've got to feel great about where they are right now.
They do. I mean, it was concerning when they started slow against Morehead State. And one thing we've seen from Big Ten tournament title teams is slow starts and losses the last 2 years. Iowa won the Big Ten tournament title on a Sunday. They lose to Richmond the following week. Purdue, we know what happened last year, win the title, lose to Fairleigh Dickinson. So I was starting to say, here we go again with the way they played against Morehead State. But they flipped the switch, dominated the second half. As we've said before, Terrence Shannon is a freight train coming at you. They're getting great play from everyone else. Marcus Domask is back. He had a little bit of a dip at one point this season. He's back playing really well. They're not making mistakes. They're not turning the ball over at a high clip. Their shot selection's better defensively. Now, you could say, they caught a break, Duquesne versus BYU. But that's what happens in this tournament.
Yes.
You don't always get high seed. You have upsets. So they play Duquesne, which got the upset over BYU. I still think they would have steamrolled BYU, but BYU would have been a better offensive team than Duquesne in that matchup, and they probably would have scored pretty well with Illinois. So now you've got an intriguing matchup.
Fascinating.
Number 1 offense efficient team in the country against the number 1 defense efficient team in Iowa State in Boston. I'll be there on Thursday. What's going to give here? Because Iowa State's going to try to lock them down. Illinois is going to try to go up and down. I'll be fascinated to see what Brad Underwood tells you.
Yeah, I do think that is a fascinating matchup. I do want to get back a little bit to the Morehead State and Duquesne games. I mean, you mentioned Shannon. Look, Zach Edey is incredible. And I don't want to it's an apples and oranges comparison because they play totally different positions. They have totally different games. I think we've been saying all year Zach Edey is the toughest person to guard in college basketball, and he certainly creates the most problems. But I mean, Terrence Shannon's in that conversation. No one wants to go against him right now. It's amazing the level of efficiency he's playing at. You used the freight train analogy, which I think a lot of us have used. I mean, their offensive scheme right now is perfect. They have the perfect pieces to do what they want to do. And again, it is fascinating that they get Iowa State here, a team that hangs its hat on its defense. But, man, I wouldn't want to go up against this offense right now.
Well, look, I know you cover college football a lot, and I'd love to see, in a combine setting, Terrence Shannon, running on the field.
He had 10 touchdown catches his last year of high school football.
Because, I mean, who's going to stand in front of him? I mean, his 0 to 60 speed is phenomenal. Once he gets going, you cannot stop him. And at this level, very few players want to stand in front and try to take that charge because he's going to literally run right through your chest.
He will.
And more often than not, it's going to be a block, not a charge. I think that the best two-way players in the country, Shannon is one, Jamal Shed from Houston is two.
Right.
Because Shannon's a better offensive player than Shed is. But those two guys in this tournament can play both sides of the court extremely well.
And then you think about some of the other contributions they're getting. I mean, Dane Danger's made 19 straight field goal attempts, a guy whose role has kind of ebbed and flowed as the year has gone on, really a great fit for what they're doing. But, I mean, you go 1.43 points per possession, first two games of an NCAA tournament. That's pretty amazing.
What I love about Danger's play the last 2 weeks is that's going to allow Illinois to play either full court or half court against Iowa State because Danger definitely can score in that low post.
It's going to be a fascinating game. Again, I think we love the upsets. The upsets are fun, all that. But, I mean, you've got two conference tournament champs. You've got a little bit of a regional rivalry here. I realize it's going to be played on the East Coast, but you're certainly going to have some neighbors going head-to-head in this one. And, again, two really good, really well-coached teams. Our big stat is brought to you by Gatorade. Illinois left no doubt this weekend. Two convincing wins, including a 26-point pounding of Duquesne on Saturday night that was never in doubt, a game in which they never trailed. The 26-point margin, the fourth largest in school history in the NCAA tournament, largest ever in a non-first-round game. And that segues us beautifully into our big interview. As promised, it's the head coach of the Fighting Illini, Brad Underwood, who is with us. Coach, congratulations on a fabulous weekend. What did you like most about the way your team played over those two games?
Well, thanks, Dave. I loved our after our 9-0 start we gave Moorhead. We played pretty good after that. I thought we were really good against Duquesne. We got on them early. We did it in a variety of ways. We did it with our defense and then transition. We did it with Coleman Hawkins stepping out and hitting 3 threes in a row in pick and pop situations. All in all, I thought it was, Dane Deja was phenomenal. Obviously Marcus with a triple double, but we kind of took what the defenses gave us and found a way to exploit it.
I know it's not your end goal at all, but we have uttered the fact that Illinois hasn't been to the second weekend since 2005. Honestly, more times than I can count, probably since the network launched. What does it mean to you to silence that, to get to the point now where we don't have to think about that anymore?
Yeah, I'm happy for our fans. I'm happy for the program. This program is so good, and it's been so good. It's so important to everybody. We sell out every game. Nobody travels like us. Our fans are fabulous when we travel. It's really quite remarkable that it's been that long. Personally, I'm very, very happy for the program, for our fans, for our administration. It was going to end sooner or later. My goal was always just keep getting there, and you get there, good things can happen, and we made that happen this past weekend.
I think back to when you took over the program, Brad. It just wasn't in a good spot. I mean, they hadn't made the tournament in 4 years. you kind of started from scratch with a new group, and it took a couple years to get there, a couple lean years. When you think personally about the journey that you've been through with this program to get here, what flashes through your mind?
Yeah, no shortcuts. I think we did it, pre-portal. We built it. We did it with starting from the ground floor. We wanted to make sure our culture was right. We're a development program. It's based on hard work. It's based on guys wanting to come in and work and get better. We saw that development. It started with an Io DeSumo and Andres Felice, a Kofi Coburn, Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, a group of guys that I couldn't be happier for them. They've all reached out and they're ecstatic at what they built. And so I don't think there was any shortcuts. And and then we've tried to stay very consistent with that whole philosophy since day one.
One of the things that I think is really cool about you as a coach is how much you've adapted. And I would just say that this team, the way you play offensively and the way you play defensively, bears almost no resemblance to when you got there. There was a great article in The Athletic yesterday talking about Jay Wright and how he had given you some advice during the course of this year that caused you to alter a little bit of how you're playing this year, mid-year. Like, fill people in on that and kind of your philosophy of being willing to adapt your style, because I do think it's unusual.
Yeah, I don't want to be stubborn. I want to do what's best for the players that we have. And sometimes it requires change. And we were turning the ball over. We knew we had a really good player in Marcus Damask who was kind of floundering about 8-9 points a game. And we needed to open the court with Terrence a little more and do some different things. And we found a way. And I mean, I say it all the time, we start 5 power forwards. And we needed to find a way to make that work. And, lo and behold, we got the #1 offense in the country. And it's just putting guys in positions to, I say one, we might be two, one or two.
No, you're one. You're #1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but it's just finding a way to play that suits the personnel you have. And me kind of trying to figure that out and get out of my own way sometimes and not overcomplicate things.
You and I were talking during the Big Ten tournament. You came over to our desk in between games, and we were just chatting really quickly. And you said something to me. You said, I'm having a great time coaching this team. Like, this is such a fun group to be around. And I think we saw evidence of it the other night when you went into the locker room with the squirt gun and bombarded the guys. Give me a sense of why. Like, what's so much fun about this group aside from the obvious that you're winning?
Yeah, and it doesn't have it's not because we're winning that I'm having fun. It's because of who these guys are, and they play the right way. They play for the joy of the game. In a time where it's NIL this and this, and our guys are doing, they're all getting NIL, and that's great, and I'm for that. But they play for the passion and the love of the game, and it hurts them when we lose. They work so hard, and they stand for all the right things, and they genuinely love each other. I mean, we don't have any bickering. We don't have any team stuff. They just have a great time together. And I've always been a guy that I think you have to reward winning. You have to acknowledge it. It's really, really hard to do. And so we've always done that here. After every game, I celebrate winning. The other night, it was just nice to take the super soaker and give a little back to them because of all the water I've received over the years. So we had a little fun with that.
I have noticed there's been a trend of drenched coaches. So the drenched players, as you say, it's a little bit of a role reversal. You were talking about having the #1 offense in the country, which you do, Andy and I were discussing your matchup with Iowa State a little bit earlier. I mean, it literally is the number one offense against the number one defense. You think about it, we're 360 plus teams in Division I college basketball. To get that matchup, I mean, what are the odds for that? I know you started studying Iowa State at least a little bit. Give us some insight into what makes them so good defensively.
Well, TJ does an unbelievable job, and the reason they're good is they play really, really hard. They'll play as hard as any team in the country, but they're very, very sound in their scheme. They know exactly what TJ wants them to do, and then they do it at a very, very high rate. And they're aggressive, they're handsy, they're very physical. They're running through passing lanes, taking stuff away. They're tenacious. They're not an overly deep team. They play 7 or 8 guys, but boy, they're committed to it, and TJ's got to play very hard.
Well, they're playing really well, but you're playing really well also. I won't ask you about the rest of the region with UConn and San Diego State, other than to say no favors were done. But I mean, look, that's the NCAA tournament this year, right? And we've had most of the favorites win here, so you know it's going to be a tough road to get to Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the other side. You've got a preview of the, Final Four last year, the championship game, and obviously everybody's number one in UConn, deservedly so. And that's the beauty of this tournament. You're going to have to win 6 games against really good opponents, and winning's really hard. And every game you have to go out and be your best. And it's nice to know we're playing well, and we're playing our best, and we're healthy. So let's throw it up and see where it falls.
Cannot wait to watch you guys coming up later this week. I hope the next time we talk, it's in Phoenix, Brad. That would be awesome.
Day, that'd make my day. I hope you're right. Go Big Ten.
All right, man. Great to talk to you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is Brad Underwood. The Illinois women's team also kept their season alive over the weekend. Adalia McKenzie, a career-high 28. They topped Stony Brook in the second round of the WBIT. They will battle Tulsa Thursday in the quarterfinals. As we continue here on Big Ten today, the women's tourney whittles it down to the Sweet 16 tonight. Indiana and Iowa both in action on a day Lisa Bluter was named a finalist for Naismith Coach of the Year. The Hoosiers will take on Oklahoma, while Iowa will take on West Virginia and Iowa City. It'll be Caitlin Clark's final home game in a Hawkeye uniform. Penn State will play tonight in the WBIT as well. They will host Belmont. Big Ten is yet to place a team in the Sweet 16. Second-seeded Ohio State lost at home to Duke yesterday, a game they led by 16 in the first half. Cody McMahon had 27 for the Big Ten regular season champs. The news also not good for the Nebraska women, who fell to Oregon State in Corvallis. Jess Shelley finished off her career, 10.7 assists and 6 boards. Good year for them as well, a team that took Iowa to OT in the Big Ten championship game. On the mat, Penn State won its 3rd straight national championship, 11th in the last 13 events. 4 wrestlers won their weight classes for the Nittany Lions, including Aaron Brooks and Carter Starachi, who became the 6th and 7th wrestlers ever to win 4 individual national titles. Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond breaks it all down, 7 Eastern today. The Nittany Lions not the only ones taking home a national title this weekend. The Ohio State women's hockey team blanked defending national champ Wisconsin 1-0. It was the Buckeyes' 2nd title in 3 years. And what a Big Ten championship game for the men. Michigan State taking down Michigan in dramatic fashion. The freshman Patrick Geary rattling in the game winner off the post to lift the Spartans to a 5-4 OT win. It marked the first Big Ten tourney title ever for MSU, went along with their first ever regular season title. Goalie Trey Augustine named the tourney MVP. And as promised, Paul Caponegri is here to help us break it down. You were in studio for the great coverage of what was a phenomenal championship game. I mean, again, we had a tremendous rivalry with Michigan and Michigan State. We've been talking all year about what a good story Michigan State has been. They win the regular season for the first time ever. They cap it off by winning the tourney. They get a top 4 seed in the NCAA tourney, which we'll get to in a moment. But I don't want to breeze past this, right?
No.
Because this is such a significant moment for Michigan State hockey as they try to revive the glory of that program. What stood out to you about this weekend?
I mean, I think they just won the way they've been doing it all year. I think Adam Nightingale has come in there. He's preached culture and consistency, and I think his team handled it. I mean, this game had everything. You had ups and downs. Michigan took the lead. It went back and forth. There was a controversial goal for Michigan State. They also scored a goal with 0.4 seconds left in the second period. Michigan fought back, which I love their team as well, but you just saw Michigan State handled so well. And then they score in overtime, and then the scene. You know, like if Michigan wins that game, great for them, but to win that game at home and then to celebrate at Munn with a raucous crowd.
Crowd was unbelievable.
It was just unbelievable. Standing room everywhere. It just kind of was a fitting cap. And they're not done. And not just this, with this year and this NCAA tournament, Adam Nightingale is building a foundation for something that lasts for years.
Right. I mean, I think that's the coolest part of it, is this program that has had so much success through the years, and we've kind of wondered a little bit. Will it get back? Will they be able to get it back?
Waiting. They tried 2 different coaches, and
Right.
it finally hit on, and it didn't take long. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes it doesn't. But he's a good recruiter, and like I said, his team buys in really quickly.
So 12 years removed from last making the NCAA tournament,
Yeah.
they are in. So let's turn the page. Let's talk about the NCAA tournament. The selections came out yesterday. As expected, 4 Big Ten teams are in. Michigan State got the 4th overall seed, as I said. They will open with in-state foe Western Michigan. They may face the Wolverines again in round 2. Michigan is North Dakota. Minnesota opens tourney play against Omaha, while Wisconsin gets the defending national champ, Quinnipiac. Get into some of these matchups. Spartans in Western Michigan. This will be in suburban St. Louis. Now, interestingly, they haven't played this year. I know in a lot of years they do play. This was not one of them. The Broncos are a high-scoring team. What are we watching for here?
A big physical team. And we're going to have this the opposite for the Big Ten team, other Big Ten teams, but Western Michigan was off. So they've had some time where Michigan State's played. They're on this high. So it's a contrast of a team coming in high and confident, and a team that lost early in their tournament and kind of waiting for their time. So it'll be very interesting to see. They'll be the first game. It's a beautiful arena there, but it's small.
I saw the ticket prices are insane.
Because there's 2,500 seats, and you have North Dakota there, which travels better than anybody. The tickets are insane. I think they have some standing room, but it's only going to be 3,000. So it will be cool, but it's a little unfortunate that it's so small for such 4 teams there that are going to be so high profile.
Yeah. Again, for Michigan State, it's been a long time coming, and it's pretty cool, again, that this is an in-state battle. These are former rivals, CCHA rivals. So I think there's a lot of interesting storylines, and then obviously were they to play Michigan.
I like just what Adam Nightingale's done there. I'm not saying it's going to guarantee them a win, but he just brings this very calming, he gets the most out of his team. I think you're going to expect a consistent performance, whether it gets them the win or not. I don't think you're going to see a letdown from them in this first round game.
So then the potential for facing Michigan, they would need to beat Western Michigan, Michigan State would, and obviously Michigan would need to beat North Dakota, historic powerhouse. As you intimated, they'll certainly have plenty of fans there, as the other programs will too. What's the latest on North Dakota? I mean, anyone who follows college hockey knows this is a perennial powerhouse. What's this year's team like?
A really good team. They have one of the top players, Jackson Blake. His dad played in the NHL a long time, long pedigree. They were a number 1 seed all through Christmas, and then they lost to Omaha in the semifinal. That dropped them. That elevated Michigan State. It just happens like that with these computer systems and the way things have gone. So that dropped them to a number 2 seed, which moved them out of where they wanted to be in Sioux Falls, where everyone thought they would be. But with Omaha going there and the way you can't play your in-conference rival the first game, they got moved to St. Louis. It'll be very interesting. But with Michigan, they're both high, fast-paced teams. So I think for Michigan, it's a good matchup in terms of Minnesota plays very similarly. Michigan State plays hard and fast. So, in the Big Ten in general, is just a speed league, and North Dakota brings that. So I think it's a good matchup in terms of they'll be prepared for that type of team. But another toss-up. I mean, you can go through all 8 of these games as a toss-up, but I like the matchup in terms of it's going to be exciting and fast-paced and fun to watch.
Wolverines looking to make the Frozen Four for the 3rd straight year, and we were talking about this in the context of basketball with like Gonzaga, a team that's playing well now and is a lot better than
at the
they
right
were.
time. They for sure have played
it
really
feels
well
like that's the story with Michigan as well. Wisconsin in the tourney for the first time in 3 years, and Quinnipiac won the national championship last year, so this is not easy. And then the location doesn't feel like it's great for the Badgers either, because you're in Providence, which is Quinnipiac is obviously in Connecticut, or maybe people
Not
don't
too
know
far
that.
away.
Yeah, and that's close, and then potentially you'd play BC as well. So So it's challenging regionally. What about the matchup here?
It's a tough bracket, and then obviously you also have to encompass the fact that Wisconsin hasn't played. It'll be about 3 weeks. And
so is that good or bad?
I mean, it can go either way. I mean, and they don't have to look far, and they don't have to look too far back. Last year, Penn State got knocked out by Ohio State in the first round. They sat around for 3 weeks.
Right.
They got into the tournament. They beat Michigan Tech 8-1.
Okay.
And then they were a goal away. They lost in overtime to Michigan to go to the Frozen Four.
Yeah.
So there's precedent to have success. You know, Coach Mike Hastings probably called Keith Fisher's assistant coach at Penn State, his old assistant. He's like, hey, what did you guys do?
Right.
You know, and got some ideas. I mean, you got to spend that time. I think they had a scrimmage between, a official scrimmage with referees this week just to simulate a game. But you just don't know what you're going to get. And then BC is the best team in the country. They can beat them, but it's going to be really difficult. Quinnipiac, Michigan, Wisconsin, very similar teams. Best of 2 of the top 3 defensive teams in the country. So it should be a tight checking game. We'll see how Wisconsin can adapt after 3 weeks.
And then I think the regional that everyone knows will be the best announced regional in the country.
Okay. I'll let you say that. I'm just happy to be there. Dave.
You're going to be in Sioux Falls.
Yes.
Minnesota will take on Omaha.
Yes.
What should we know about this one?
Omaha's had a really great second half. They were nowhere kind of on the radar in the first half in terms of getting an at-large bid, and they ran off. I think they only lost 3 games, and that's including playoffs of their last 17. But Minnesota's played well in the second half. My worry with Minnesota is that their inconsistency might catch up to them. If they play a great game, 60 minutes, they are going to win this game. When they play well, they are phenomenal. They just are kind of up and down a little bit. So a little worried that way. They didn't play last weekend. I think actually that's a benefit for them. But it's going to be a tough matchup. But if Minnesota can put 60 minutes together, they will win this game. But we shall see.
If they can put 120 minutes together, they'd be in St. Paul.
And at home, one step at a time. And they're the only team in the tournament this year from the state of Minnesota.
Right, which is crazy.
Crazy, right. So fun
years
stuff.
where every team in Minnesota makes it.
There's a lot. Duluth, St. Cloud, Minnesota State. So Minnesota. It's all on Minnesota.
All right.
This year.
Yeah, no pressure.
No,
right?
not.
And no pressure on you. I know you'll.
It'll be fun. Jason Ross Jr. will
I know
crush
you'll have a blast.
Oh, it's the best time of year.
All right, man. We'll talk to you. Thanks for keeping us updated on this. We'll talk to you throughout the tournament. Back to hoops with Andy, though, the rest of the way. We're going to focus on the 4 Big Ten teams that saw their season end. The NCAA tourney's opening weekend. Lots more ahead here on Big Ten Today. Back on Big Ten Today, continuing to take you through the weekend that was in the NCAA tourney. 4 Big Ten teams bowed out in the first 2 rounds. Both Michigan State and Northwestern picked up 1 win before losing over the weekend. Wisconsin and Nebraska both dropped their opening games. Let's start with Michigan State as Andy rejoins me here. I thought they played about as well as they have all year in the opener against Mississippi State. I mean, they were really great. I thought they were locked in, particularly defensively. I thought they were fabulous. And then against North Carolina started really well, and you thought, wow, here we go. This is what we've been talking about all year. You're a number 1 seed. Who wants Izzo? A team that was in the top 5. And then North Carolina went on that massive run, and Michigan State was out of the game. But all in all, considering where they were seated, to me, played reasonably well.
Yeah, I mean, they were who they were.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing because we all projected them to be higher. We were not alone in thinking they would compete for the Big Ten title. I will admit now, I thought they might be better than Purdue at the beginning of the season, before the season started. I was wrong on that, and everyone else was wrong on that. And so was Tom Izzo. He admitted it.
Right.
Their veteran players were never consistent. I would say for the most part, Tyson Walker was.
Right.
He was at a high level
Yes.
throughout the course of the season. And really, from the Northwestern first loss that
Right
they had
after
to them,
New Year's, yeah.
Malik Hall was good the rest of the
Yes.
way. He did not play well that game, didn't score. He was fine. Hogard, Akins, all over the map. They never had consistent play from the post. The bench came along later than wanted to be. You know, look, again, tragic situation. Thank God he's going to be okay with Jeremy Fears.
Yes.
You know, that would have added more depth. I mean, Trey Holloman was really good off the bench, but a little erratic. But if Fears had played, he was ascending. People forget that, you know. I mean, Fears was playing well before that shooting. And so you add him in there, and Booker and Cohen Carr. You know, Carr was still a little over the map, but Booker finally was playing well later. You know, so depends who comes back. You know, he's committed to saying, I got to go further. We don't know, but I have faith that they will be in the mix again.
I was really encouraged by Booker at the end of the year. I think they were just a big man short. Like, I think you look at Armando Bacot and you think they just really had no answer at all for him. So we'll see. What about Northwestern? Down 2 starters due to injury. They won a nice game against FAU. That overtime was unbelievable. I mean, it was about as good at 5 minutes as you can play. And then UConn, it just felt like, I mean, UConn is so good. I mean, defensively, they were fabulous. They were really able to commit probably an extra body to Boo Buie because, frankly, with the injuries Northwestern had, you didn't really have to guard everyone with the same tenacity. But I think you come out of it feeling really positive. There's probably a little bit of a what-if game with them when you think about if Ty Berry and Matthew Nicholson were healthy. Could this have been a second weekend team?
I think they definitely would have been. I mean, obviously, we never know. But
because they would have been a higher seed.
They wouldn't have been an 8 or 9.
Yeah, right.
You know,
exactly.
would they have gotten as high as a 6? Maybe. I don't know. Probably a 7.
Right.
The Berry injury, at one point, I thought was you could overcome that. And they did to some extent because Langborg started to play better, although he got hurt at times. The Nicholson injury, you know, it's unfortunate that it was, you know, they had Klingon, which was a bad matchup, obviously, for them because they had no answer. And Nicholson at least could be physical, could give you 5 fouls.
When he's 7 feet tall.
Yes.
Right,
So,
and the other guys aren't.
You know, that's really disappointing that he was obviously out. So there were 2 people down. I just want to say this. Chris Collins did an unbelievable job with this group. Back-to-back, I think you could have made an argument for him to be Coach of the Year. Maybe you have 3 coaches in the Big Ten. He's elevated the program to a level it's never been. 3-0 in our first-round games. They've only played 3. And Boo Boo, we would have to say right here and now, will go down as one of the greatest players ever to wear that purple and white. You know, Rayfeld jokes about a statue, but he just took this program to another level, ultimate winner, and it's going to be hard to replace him. But just a shout out and a clap for Boo Boo and everything he accomplished at a high-class level at Northwestern.
That moment with Boo Buie and Collins when Buie came out of the game for the last time was incredible. It was one of the longest embraces I think I've seen from a coach and a player. And then the entire Northwestern fan section, which was quite significant in New York, started chanting "Thank you, Boo," and it really it was a cool moment. And no doubt, like, he elevated the program. Chris Collins done an amazing job, and I think they're thought of differently than they were here a few years ago. So no doubt a huge accomplishment and really a great year for them. Let's talk about the teams that didn't win a game. Let's start with Wisconsin. You mentioned this off the top. I do think maybe this was the most disappointing of the Big Ten teams, just because you lose by 11 to a 12 seed when you're a 5 seed, and just never really felt like they were gonna win this game.
Well, the disappointing thing is they had played so well.
Yes, I know.
I saw their last 4 or 5 games in person, and they were back to being what we thought they would be in January. They had a bad February. You know, Chucky Hepburn played great in Minnesota last week. Stephen Krall suddenly says, I'm the aggressor. I'm going to be at a higher level. You know, he was at A.J. Storr, Blackwell. They were playing high, and they literally just got popped by James Madison and never recovered. They were out-toughed, poor shot selection, bad body language. It just was befuddling. It really was. And I really do believe, because I saw them in Minnesota after they lost Illinois, when they saw the bracket, they were kind of excited, like, we got a chance to play Duke.
Right. 19 turnovers,
they didn't play
so uncharacteristic.
They played the Dukes.
Yeah, yeah. it was the Dukes. It was the Dukes.
And now we see who comes back. That's the big question.
Right, Connor Sejan already
Yeah.
in the portal.
I mean, he
this
wasn't
morning,
playing a
which
lot,
probably
but
not
AJ Storr is
unexpected.
the big question.
Right. No, I would agree. I think it comes down to they picked a bad day to have a bad day.
Yes.
And they had a profoundly bad day given what we had seen from them only a week earlier. Finally, Nebraska lost to Texas A&M by 15. They're now 0-8 all time in the NCAA tourney. Heartbroken for these guys because this felt like a team that could win a game. Look, when you saw Texas A&M put up nearly 100 points on them, a team that has struggled to put the ball in the basket all year, you thought, what in the world? And then Texas A&M went out and put up, nearly 100 points against Houston. So maybe it wasn't so much what Nebraska didn't do defensively as that Texas A&M found something. But this is still a really good story, and to get to the tournament was a big deal.
Yeah, and they totally earned and deserved their seed. Again, shout out to Keisei Tominaga. What a joy to cover and
Yes.
watch him the last couple of years. His emotion, you talk about Boo Booey and Chris Collins. Keisei Tominaga's emotion after the game was real and genuine. Absolutely loved his time in Lincoln, Nebraska. They accepted him in every facet. And, he loved playing for Fred Hoiberg. His teammates loved him. The community loved him. Everything about this team was entertaining and a pleasure to cover and watch. And I think Fred Hoiberg has now figured it all out.
Yes.
I mean, he was always a good coach before, but how he needs to compete at this league, at this level. And I think Nebraska, like Northwestern, they're going to be here.
And they have a lot of guys who could come back, right?
Yes.
They have guys with decisions to make, but an extra COVID year and all that. And so this could be a really competitive team. Obviously, Tominaga, not one of them, but this could be a really competitive
Yes.
team coming up here next year. The second most wins in school history this season. So congratulations to them. Dramatic conclusion of our show coming up next. We're going to wrap things up, some NIT talk. Up and down weekend for the league. Keep it here on Big Ten Today. One Big Ten team still alive in the NIT. It is Ohio State, which beat Virginia Tech by 8 on Saturday night behind a double-double from Jamison Battle. Bucks will host Georgia tomorrow in the quarterfinals. Minnesota and Iowa both lost yesterday. The Hawks fell by 9 at Utah, while Indiana State topped the Gophers by 12. Let's start with the Buckeyes, Andy. I mean, this continues to be a really good story under Jake Diebler, playing very well in this tournament.
Yeah, well, I love this, that they wanted to keep playing.
Yes.
They made the surprise. I say surprise just because it's Ohio State, new AD. So we were a little surprised. I'm so thrilled that Jake Diebler got the job. He deserved it. And he's got the players on board. They want to keep playing for him. No one's bailing. No one's opting out. And they're playing really well. And so they got a great shot to win the NIT, which would be great momentum because they could return the majority of their team, add in the portal, and suddenly Ohio State's a factor next year.
There is a little bit of a what-if factor, I think, whenever, particularly kind of given the way this year went, where they made the coaching change and they started playing so well after that, and you do wonder, man, like this is a team that's probably 1 or 2 wins away, maybe 2 away from being in the NCAA tournament. But this is tons of momentum, and again, as you say, a new coach. You've got proof of concept here.
Yes.
You can say what we're doing is going to work, and that should help them. Iowa, a bit of a familiar refrain to me, just the defense lacking a little bit. I love that Patrick McCaffrey was the leading scorer for his last game as a Hawkeye, but this is kind of the way that you would have expected them to go out, just in terms of they were pretty good offensively and the defense let them down a bit.
And never a great road team.
Yeah.
And that sort of had been their bugaboo this season for the most part. They did have the road win at Northwestern, but for the most part, they really struggled on the road. So, look, again, it's going to be who comes back.
Right.
They have a good young core. Owen Freeman, co-freshman of the year.
Brock Harding got better and better as
Yes.
the year went on, too.
Josh Dix.
Yeah.
I mean, so they've got players there. We'll see what happens. They need to add in the portal, though.
Yeah, absolutely. No. Again, I just want to reemphasize Patrick McCaffrey.
Yes,
really,
I love it.
really good young man. And
People
been through
forget
a lot.
everything he went through.
No, I'm really happy for him to go out as having a really good game. Minnesota fell to Indiana State on the road. This is a year where a lot of progress was made. I think we're going to sound like a broken record here. It depends who comes back, but they pretty much can return their entire roster.
Yeah, we shall see. It was unfortunate Dawson Garcia did not have a great game against Indiana State. If they do return their roster, and I think if you talk to any other Big Ten coach around, they will say they think Minnesota will be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league next season.
Yeah.
That's the big if. Cam Christie certainly could go to the NBA draft. He could get in the portal. We shall see. Hopefully everyone stays. And if they do, they're going to have a great team next year. You know, for them, I thought one of their best wins of the year was at Butler in the first round of the NIT. That was a great win for Minnesota. Then they got to go to Indiana State. So
Yeah, absolutely.
hope for Minnesota. I think they could be really good next year.
No doubt. And Ben Johnson said to us, hey, we wanted to play in the NIT,
Yes.
and I think they showed that. Hopefully it becomes a building block for them. We will see you tomorrow for Big Ten Today. Join us then.